Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health.
Join us as we have fun making the weird shit a normal part of your everyday life.
Hello, welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. Today we have Dr. Njideka Olatunde. She's an accomplished naturopath and leading authority on the cultural integration of traditional healthcare with conventional medicine for mind, body, and emotional wellness. Dr. Olatunde is a master reflexologist, pain relief educator and advocate, media personality, mentor, and consultant who has helped thousands of men and women make healthy, stress-free lifestyle changes in their personal and professional lives. She is the visionary and creative energy behind Focus on Healing Wellness Institute and the Touchology Wellness Experience. She joins us today to talk about relieving pain with the power of touch. Welcome to the show, Njideka.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Njideka, can we start with what is reflexology?
Excellent question. Reflexology is the art and science of working specific reflex nerve ending points that are found on the hands, feet, and ears to relax, relieve pain and discomfort, improve circulation, and reduce toxins and impurities from the body.
When you look at somebody's hands and their feet, are there certain things that you can tell about a person and their health or their wellness just by looking at those areas?
Certain instances there are. Say, for example, if someone has edema or they may be dealing with hypertension, there will be inflammation in areas on the hands and the feet that will let us know that's the area that we need to be working on as it relates to those nerve endings and where that location is found on the hands and feet.
I'm pretty familiar with that there are certain locations on your feet that are partnered with different body systems or organs within your body. Is it the
Yes.
same for your hands?
Hands are a duplicate of the feet. Now, what's interesting about the hands, when most people learn reflexology, they always connect specifically with the feet. But we're talking about the extremities. Reflexology works on the hands, feet, and ears. Now, the difference between the two, when you're working reflexology on the feet, what you're doing is you're dealing with the whole body in terms of activating nerve endings. When you talk about reflexology on the hands, I like to say that's how you prepare the body to activate the healing process is what you do with the hands. And when you talk about the ears, you're talking about relieving pain that may be crucial pain points, and you go directly to the ears in terms of stimulating those nerve endings to activate stress and pain relief. So each part, the feet, the hands, and the ears serve a specific purpose.
So when you're seeing a client, do you typically start with the hands per se, just to prepare the body for the healing?
Most definitely. You start with the hands. One of the things about the hands is that it's the most used part of our body. The hands, no one ever takes them seriously in terms of stimulation or anything outside. We just use them. So, in order to relax the body and get it in preparation for the healing process or for the energy release, the hands are done first. We do the hands first. And the hands are a smaller composition of the whole body because all of the nerve endings in the hands are overlapping each other, whereas on the feet, they're spread out. So that's the difference between the two.
So, what are we doing when you see someone's hands for the first time? I'm sure you're assessing the hands, but are you giving them like a massage? Is it more like pressure? Are you touching them to feel different areas of the hand? And what does that information give you?
Now, I like that question because you said a no word for us in reflexology. First of all, reflexology is not a massage. And the reason being is because, and I usually like to use this analogy, reflexology and massage, we're kin to each other. We're relatives, but we're not the same. Just for the family structure, everybody, we're related, but we're different. And I say that from the standpoint because with massage, you're working with the muscle and the soft tissue. With reflexology, we're working with the nerve system and the nerve endings. So that's how we distinguish between the difference between the two. But when I'm usually working on someone, just like with any therapeutic practice, we do what's called a diagnostic, which means you do an evaluation. And we evaluate based on the information that we are receiving. Because a lot of time people will be in pain. And for reflexologists, pain to us means that it's just a warning sign of something going on in the body. What we want to do when we're working on the hands or the feet or the ears is to relieve that area that's in stress before we can get to what is the actual cause of the problem that's related to the pain or health issue.
I feel like I've just learned so much. Thank you for that. I'm excited
Mhm.
about it. But just thinking about how you say reflexology is kin to massage therapy, and that massage therapists are working on muscle and you're working on nerve points or nerve endings. Can you tell by feel that you're on specific points, or is it that specific points are geographically located essentially the same for everyone? And so you're just going to those specific locations.
I like how you said that. Yes, it's geographically located the same on everybody. There's no difference. And one of the things that we have to understand that kind of differentiates reflexology from other therapies, we don't look at breaking the body apart in bits and pieces. When you're doing a reflexology session, even though a client may have come to us with a specific health problem, we're looking at the whole of the person. We're looking at how do you integrate the mind, the body, and the spirit in terms of actually doing a reflexology session. Because one of the things you find as it relates to health and wellness and healing. When a person is in pain, that pain didn't just come overnight. It's a process. It's been happening for a while. And pain is a warning sign of something going on that you need to be paying attention to. When we're doing a reflexology session, we start, say, for example, which I can share, like the fingers and the toes represent the nerve endings to the head. We deal with mind, body, and spirit. We'll start with the head going straight down through the body. And then we're going to be dealing with the overall essence of what's going on with that person, which leads back to when we talk about the power of touch. So when we say mind, body, and spirit, we're encompassing the power of touch in terms of relieving pain. Because although the pain may be felt physically, it can also be emotionally and it also can be mentally. So, like, you have to encompass all of that. And that's what we do in a reflexology session.
You are doing a session on a client, not only just about
Mhm.
activating certain points or nerve endings, it's the impact of the physical touch from
Yes.
the practitioner to the patient. Am I
Yes.
understanding you right?
Yes. And that's what's so important because when you're working on a patient, on a client or patient, what happens is there has to be a connection. Because when you talk about stimulating, the nerve endings are the message center of the body. That's how all of the messages go to the brain, and then the brain will then send the message to what organ, what system needs to be worked on. And that's what we're doing. So we're really activating the communication center of the body by stimulating the nerve endings. And there has to be a connection. One of the things when you start talking about using the power of touch in relieving pain, you're talking about how you are able to connect mentally, physically, and emotionally with your particular health problem and the practitioner. Because one of the things as a practitioner, you can I'll change this to say, one of the things that we do as a practice, we assist the body in the healing process because the body is designed to heal itself. So no, we aren't the healers. We are the assistant. When we activate the nerve endings, the message then goes to the brain. Okay, if there's a pain area, say in the knee, then we need to send the energy, the nerve ending reflex energy to that knee area, and that's what we will be working on.
Do most clients come to you specifically for pain, or are they coming for something else and you realize that pain is a big factor that's associated with it?
You asked the best question. I like that question because the number one reason a person goes to a physician, first and foremost, is because they're in pain. That's the number one. And so, what we do is we work on relieving the pain first and then put together the treatment plan to address the health issue. And that's important because when a client comes to you and they're in pain and you focus on what they are there for, they are more inclined to be able to work with you in terms of as you put together a health program, which means that reflexology is not the cure all. And I let everybody know this. What we're doing is we're using this as a medication free alternative in relieving pain so that we now can put together what is causing the pain. Say, for example, you may have a back problem, so what that may mean is I may need to put together a program that will include you seeing a reflexologist. I mean, seeing a chiropractor. I may look at the pain to your back may mean that you need to go to an acupuncturist, but we're talking about incorporating and integrating the hands-on therapies in addressing the client's health problem after we relieve the pain.
So, when you're working with a client to initially relieve the pain, is that something that could be done in one session, or is that something that kind of takes a couple sessions to work through?
Usually a standard reflexology session, 5 to 6 sessions in terms of dealing with the standpoint of reflexology. But in that process, this is the other thing. What we do is we work with teaching our clients how to be able to use reflexology themselves when pain starts happening in their body as an alternative to dealing with the chemical association with reflexology they may be having side effects from and those kind of things. It's a hand-in-hand process. You come to us to get the overall fine-tuning, and then what we do is we show you how you can implement what you're having in the session so that you can have it 24/7.
That sounds very empowering. Clients coming to you, they're getting relief, and at the same time, they're being taught how they can learn to relieve themselves as we put together a comprehensive plan. And it just makes me think with
Yes.
something so empowering for a patient, did you have a story that brought you to reflexology that made you
Ah.
so intrigued with this?
What happened was, I don't know if you're familiar with, but I had the opportunity to do what was called a vision quest. I was with some Native Americans, and what they did is they would place you by yourself on a mountain, a spot on the mountain, and you had to be there by yourself. Now, what was fascinating about this, I live in an urban environment. I had never camped out before in my life. And so now you're talking about putting me outdoors by myself with nature. And that was very interesting. It was an interesting experience. But what happened was through that experience, butterflies used to always be flying around and you had to record things while you were there. It was like with nature. My only major fear was that a snake might come and what would I do if I saw a snake? That was my fear. But anyway, after that, and we came down from the mountain and you're there by yourself. So after I came down and then we would get, it was like a session that was explaining what your experience was on the mountain. I was told that I needed to look to my hand as a healing tool. And that's what was how it came about. I thought it meant being a massage therapist. So I went to massage school. I didn't like massage, but I was introduced to reflexology and I liked the reflexology. So that's how I initially got my start because I was led to it. But when I was in sharing this experience and when I was talking to my brother, we talked about how we grew up with my mother always giving us hand and foot and back massages when we were growing up, and then we would do it to each other. So I guess it was automatically ingrained and it just became official when I went through that experience with nature that this is what I was going to do. So that's originally how it happened in terms of understanding using the power of your hands as a healing tool.
I love that you just trusted it. This was the feedback that you got from this. Sounds like an amazing experience, and you just trusted it and went with it. I love that.
It was unusual. But the other thing too is to add to that, I grew up on home remedy and natural environments. My life path was really laid out for me that I did not know that. But when I was a child, I wanted to be a doctor. I really did. And what happened was when I got to college, I found out that medicine was not going to be for me because I saw doctors as being healers. Because back then, doctors did home visits and those kind of things. And it was like one on one. So, with that experience, I wound up becoming a social worker. That was my whole career objective. But as a social worker, one of the things that really bothered me was that most of the clients always went to the emergency room as their doctor. And so that's how I began to start putting together the programs that I utilize in my practice. And then the timing kind of changed and then it opened up because that's when alternative therapies came on the scene. And I said, okay, now this is my opportunity to go into naturopathic healthcare. And so that's like the whole essence of my story.
I absolutely love that's just so exciting. And like Julie said, you just trusted and you just took the next step and you didn't question, you didn't try to control, you just did it. Do you have a client story that you'd like to share? 'Cause I feel like the experience someone can have with you through this process, because that's what it is. It's a process
Yes.
of not just reflexology, but also a self healing, learning to use other resources and tools. It's empowering as you are asking for help and support.
Yes.
So if there's a client story that you'd like to
One
share,
of
I think I'd love
my
to hear it.
One of my favorite stories is I built my practice when I first got started. I built my practice working with senior citizens. That's how my practice got started, working with seniors. And through the seniors, I was able to like work with their family members in terms of reflexology. But I had a client who every time she came, she always brought her granddaughter with her. She shared with me how she was having a hypertension stress. Her pressure ran up and it was real serious. And her granddaughter grabbed her hands and started working on her hands and then working on her feet, and her pressure went down. That comes from the fact that we're talking about the communication between the power of touch. Now, her granddaughter did not know specifically what I did. She saw enough to know how to do the techniques to be able to reduce the pressure or bring the pressure down so her grandmother would not go into a hypertensive attack, which is where she was headed. And so I always like that story because The other thing which did not share with you earlier is I have a youth program where I teach young people how to do reflexology. And I'm doing that from the standpoint of preparing the next generation of reflexologists because this is a health career that it's not popularized, but it's something that young people can know about and see this in terms of entering to the health arena. But that's one story that I find to be real successful in terms because it is the power of touch that can relieve pain and that can assist in the healing process. So what my client's granddaughter did was work with the body, assisting it in the healing process to help her grandmother by stimulating the nerve ending to release the pressure that was going up and bringing it down.
Do you find that somebody who's going through a fairly complicated or complex diagnosis to
Mhm.
not only utilize modern Western medicine, but also then to incorporate reflexology to help that process? Have you had that experience? For
I
example, if
do.
somebody's going through a cancer diagnosis or something along those lines.
Have had the opportunity to work with integrate the alternative therapies with conventional medicine. And it's not that I advocate that you shouldn't use conventional medicine and all that. The two can go hand in hand. The thing is understanding how to use it, especially with people with cancer. Reflexology has been known to help many cancer patients in terms of you're dealing with stress, you're dealing with pain, you're dealing with emotional issues. So, like to be able to bring balance in terms of the reflexology helps bring balance to conventional medicine in terms of what problem a patient may be having. And it doesn't supersede whereas one is above the other. It's an integrative approach. And I think that what we're looking at now in relationship to healthcare, that's something that's going to be a part of the new way of health and wellness. How do we integrate the therapies to come together and work collectively and cooperatively together as one in the healing process?
I love how you just added that at the end because the question I was just thinking was how much, at least in healthcare, we've become disconnected from our patients.
Mhm.
Even my staff would say, we're doing all this computer documentation.
Mhm.
Literally would have conversations of how can we memorize and ask these questions to actually be with the patient so we're not sitting behind a screen so much. And I
Mhm.
think physicians feel same way as nurses do. With this wave of
Mhm.
technology and a lot of things being done over Zoom, don't get me wrong, there's lots of value with that. That's what's enabled us to have this conversation today. Have you seen any changes over the years with this increase of technology and almost people being pulled away from each other?
Most definitely. And I think the biggest came through the pandemic. When we had to go through the COVID and the pandemic, one of the major things that happened was the fact which you just spoke about. We lost how to touch as well as how to communicate with each other. And we are struggling with that now. But that's a result of what happened because this is my unscientific research piece of study in terms of I think that when you connect with the pandemic, I personally feel that a lot of people may transition sooner because of the fact that they were not able to connect with loved ones during the times that they were in crisis or that they were in pain, because that's where we talk about how the power of touch. And I think we have to understand that when I say power of touch, it's not only physical touching, it's how you can smile at someone. That's a touch. Saying a kind word to someone, that's a touch. This is what's a part of healing. And the one thing I want to say that gives benefit to reflexology were the nurses who back in the day introduced healing touch. in the medical field. They were the first to step on the front line in terms of touching. And so I think that we've got to look at, yes, we need, yes, we need the benefits of the AI, the Zooms and all of that for I say the documentation, the research piece of our patients and with our clients. Nothing passes the physical connection, however you do it. That's what healing was always about.
Trish and I are both nurses, and we worked together through the pandemic. And
Yes.
what you just said about physical connection and nurses really is heartfelt to me. I just think of
Mhm.
how many patients' hands that I held at different points in their health journey or their health
Yes.
diagnosis.
Yes.
There are certain patients that that's the most vibrant memory that I have is holding their hands or
Yes.
being in the room with them. And it was really a struggle when you were from head to toe covered and all you could see were
Yes.
eyes and you couldn't see people's smiles, and even just the interaction that you
Right.
had with each
Right.
other as peers with your fellow teammates or your staff members, and not being able
Yes.
to read that was, I don't want to say traumatic, but in a way it was. And so I think that as nurses, we recognize truly the power of touch and the power of being able to
Yes.
read people's bodies in their natural state
Yes.
that was wholly unrecognized and
Mm.
disregarded throughout that experience. That's just my little commentary.
Now, I
But
wanted to add
it's
one
very
piece.
valid.
I just want to add one piece, and I think, Julie, I don't know if this is the word
Sure.
you were thinking of, but what came to my mind when you were talking was it was very isolating.
Yes.
We may have been 10 to 15 people in and outside of a close quarters of a room, but yet it was very isolating and very disconnected.
Exactly. And when you're going through an experience, what gets you through is the people and feeling part of a group,
Yes.
belonging. That connection is so critical.
And it's because of that, I think that we're going to have to look at how we can get back. And that's why I'm such an advocate about the power of touch. Because once we can start getting back to touching each other, we'll be able to now move to the next level. How do we communicate to each other? How do we connect to each other in a way that is positive and not negative all the time? The stuff that we're dealing with now is like people are hungry for touch, but they don't know how to ask you for it. People are hungry for being able to communicate with people, but they don't know how to speak to you. That put us in a fear fact because one of the things that I found when we were coming out of the pandemic, people were still afraid to touch each other. It like they still had that kind of mindset. Should I be touching you or should I be near you? That kind of thing. So it's like we have to go through a whole re-education piece. And that's how I see reflexology as being a front runner in bringing peace. That's how I was like, look, how to bring peace.
I absolutely love that. And that is so true. Is that even I would say my husband and I went away the other weekend and we still saw some people. I think it was two people in one place that we went that were wearing masks. We're like, whoa, we're years out. And there's still people who have this fear
Yes.
of not just touch, but I would say human contact,
Yes.
human
Yes.
interaction. What would you say, from your standpoint, could be two or three things that everyone can do? And maybe they're small steps to help bring us back to connection, back to touch.
One of the things I think is a two-letter word that is so powerful. And I don't think people realize how powerful it is to be able to say thank you. And when you say thank you to someone and you see the smile that comes on someone's face when you just saying thank you. If we can understand the power of those two words makes a difference. Another thing I think is to be able to learn how to, we need to smile more. We need to be able to smile because smiles are contagious. So if you're smiling, the next person is going to smile right back at you, this kind of thing. So it's not a complicated thing that we have to look at. And then the other thing I would say is if you don't do anything else as an individual, and the reason why I said say the word thank you, because we're talking about being grateful, having gratitude. Just like I say thank you to you, I also need to be able to be thankful to myself for all that I have, all that I go through, and understand this is the one thing I would say understand that each and every day, life is about lesson and see yourself as a student in the classroom of life. And to be a student in the classroom of life, you're learning a new lesson. You may get it, you may not, but it's all right. It's a lesson. And then once we can understand and put that together, it takes a lot of stress off us. I think we put more stress on us than need be. And that's a mind game. That's all about the mind. And so once we can let go, and one other thing I'm going to say for all of us, please let the little girl and little boy inside come out and play sometime. It's all right to be silly. We need to stop being so serious about everything. Let the child in you come out. And you'll be surprised how relieving that can be. And so that's what I would say. Those are little pointers I would leave in terms of living a stress and pain-free life.
All right. I just want to make sure we have all these straight. Say thank you to express gratitude to each other. Smile. The smiling's contagious. I just blanked. Oh, give yourself grace.
Big,
Give yourself grace
yes,
and
yes,
learning
yes,
and play. Allow
yes,
yourself to play.
yes, exactly.
And those would be some great
And
steps to
if
get
we
us.
would do, if you just try it, it will be fun. The main thing is we need to be able to put some fun back in our lives. We're going through some really challenging times right now, but we need to put some fun into these challenges that we're going through.
I have to say, just listening to you, now I'm like, I need to go see a reflexologist. Like, I wanna go. I don't have anything in particular besides crazy stress, but I'm having a good time here, and I'm like, "Okay, how can I find a reflexologist?" If someone's looking for a reflexologist, is there a good resource to go to find somebody who's trained, and what kind of trainings and certifications should somebody be looking for?
We have the American Reflexology Association, and that will be a good place to start because it's broken down by states where you can find a reflexologist in your area. Go to the American Reflexology Association. It also deals with training. You want to be able to have a reflexologist who had at least 200 plus hours in certification and training in reflexology. And you want them, I would suggest to be certified. You want that. And to look at a reflexologist specifically, the one thing I'd say is every reflexologist is not for everybody, but that does not mean there's not one for you. There has to be a connection. And so find that reflexologist because there are people who I would not be the reflexologist for, but there's somebody else that could actually be. That's why I always say, even when I teach my colleagues, when I teach my students and once they graduate, the first thing I tell them, you are now my colleagues. We don't have any competition. There's lots of feet and hands to go around for everybody. And the thing is if we can understand that and operate from that perspective, our mission is to be about helping people find health and wellness using reflexology as a tool. But that's what I would suggest. Go to the American Reflexology Association. And also, if you want information on reflexology, I have information on my website, which is at focusonhealing.com. And there you can find a lot of information that can help you in terms of using reflexology for yourself or finding reflexology from another practitioner in terms of what to look for in terms of the service that you want to receive.
That's great. Are there different levels of practitioners? You yourself are a master reflexologist. What are the different levels in certifications? And how do you obtain those different levels?
They're not nec- there's not necessarily any different levels of reflexology. I the reason how I got to become a master reflexologist is because I have had training internationally, nationally, and locally in the traditional culture of reflexology. When you get to quote and unquote what they classify as master status, that's someone who has dedicated their life to that. All I do is reflexology. I don't do anything else. And I've spent the time perfecting and mastering the craft of reflexology. But you have the difference is we may not have levels, but you have specialties in reflexology because there are a lot of reflexologists now who are specializing in specific healthcare. Like we have people who work with gut health, we have people who work in hospice care, we have people who are working with cancer, people who are working with birth and delivery. So you have specialties inside reflexology now.
I was thinking that attaining a certain level allowed you to teach others. That's where my brain was going. But that's very interesting.
Mhm.
Thank you. If there are
I
ways,
think one of the things I want to say before you say, when you ask about the teaching, the more levels of advanced training that you have can put you in a position where you can move into the teaching arena of reflexology.
that makes sense. Do you have any type of resources on your website aside from that that people can work with you potentially, or are all of your sessions in person?
I work virtually. And so, like, I'm open. I do have a book that's can be a reference. It's called Reflexology Today, a Family Affair. And that's a resource that people can use as a self help guide in reflexology. That's a starting point. The other thing is, I like to say, I do what I call introductory consultation. We can talk about people's health problems. And I do an intro session virtually that people can go online and schedule a session. And we talk about your particular health problems in relationship to how reflexology might be able to help you. And that's so like I offer that to my clients first and foremost, because I think it's important when someone has a health problem. I'm real big on there needs to be a connection. We need to be able to be on the same page in terms of understanding how to work with each other to get the end results that everybody's looking for.
Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us today. We learned so much about reflexology, the power of touch, and what I think is probably one of the most important parts of our conversation of how we can get back to connecting with each other. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'd like to share with you one thing which is really important. In the African culture, we have what we do is when we visit someone's house, we bring them a gift. And I'm visiting your house and I have a gift for you and your listeners. I've put together a poster for your listeners on relieving stress and pain. And they can go to Touchology Relief, no, touch.com and download the poster. And that's my gift to you and your listeners.
Thank you so much. And we will have that in the show notes so our listeners can click that link and download it to make themselves more connected with touch.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I have truly enjoyed it.
Likewise.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend.
Want to learn more about a specific topic? Follow and drop us a line on Instagram so we can explore it more with you.